This is a Tiffen Black Pro Mist filter. Now I know a lot of you probably like, what's a Pro Mist filter? It just looks clear to me. Well, that's because it is. Kind of. You can't really see it on camera, but it has like millions of tiny little specks or mist all over the glass. Now ND filters are more commonly talked about because if you shoot video during the daytime, then you pretty much have to have one of these to get the settings that you want on your camera. But Pro Mist filters are used very commonly and very oftenly in movies and TV shows and even commercials, even though they're not talked about as much as things like ND filters. So what does a Pro Mist filter do? Well, it basically takes away some of that digital look of your footage and makes it more film-like by smoothing out and cutting down on the highlights and lifting the shadows just a bit and giving your image overall a more natural look to it. And just like ND filters, these come in multiple strength levels, with probably 1/8 and 1/4 being the most common. Once you go beyond that to like 1/2 or 1 or even 2, things become really soft and dreamy looking, so it becomes more of a special effect at that point depending on what you're shooting. So 1/8 to 1/4 is probably the normal range you're going to be in with a Pro Mist filter. Now this particular filter that I have is at 1/4, and I find that to be just right for most daytime scenes. So once you get into a lower light situation, the effect of this filter is more exaggerated. So some people might want to switch out to a 1/8 when you have less light in the room or you're shooting outside in the nighttime. But for most daytime scenes, I find that a 1/4 is just right for me. So enough with the talking, let's look at some footage so I can show you exactly what this filter is doing. Now it's a real subtle effect, but if you pay attention to the highlights and the shadows of each one of these images, you'll see that the highlights are brought down some and more glowing looking and smoother, and the shadows are lifted slightly, giving the image an overall less contrasted look, which helps the image look more natural and lifelike like it does in real life than coming from a digital camera sensor. This is not really an effect that you can get in editing effectively, and you don't lose any detail by using the filter on your lens. Now this shot of the interstate is the one that I think shows the effect the best. The sun is completely in the picture on side of the building in the background, so it's shining onto all of the scene, creating highlights everywhere. But when I apply the filter, you can see how much more organic things look because the highlights have been brought down and smoothed out, giving the image an overall smoother tone that looks more like it did when I was there filming it. These two shots were taken only seconds apart, but it looks like I shot the second shot later in the day when the sun was lower because of how much smoother things look. Now all of the shots I've showed you so far were shot in S-Log2, which naturally has a lot of dynamic range anyway. But this shot right here I did without any picture profile, so this is straight out of camera, just using the basic standard settings. And when I apply the Pro Mist filter, you can see how it almost makes the image look like it was shot in the log profile by smoothing out all the highlights and lifting the shadows a bit and giving it a more natural look. Now me sitting here right now on camera is basically a low light situation. The light that I have sitting right here is on minimum brightness, and pretty much any highlights in this shot are exaggerated because everything else is at a minimum. So I'm going to screw the filter on now and show you what it looks like. Now if you didn't see the effect before, hopefully you can see it now because it's more exaggerated than it was in the shots that I showed you earlier. Now if you still don't see the effect that this filter has, then maybe try watching this video on a bigger screen and that might make it more apparent to you. But it's one of those things that's a very slight difference. It's kind of like one of those things where you pick up a camera and you've been using it for a long time. You don't really feel like you're getting any better until you look back on some of your older work and the difference becomes very obvious. There's a whole bunch of slight improvements that you make over time that add to the big picture later on. And this is one of those things. It's one of those filters that just adds a little polish and a little improvement over the image that you're currently getting. Like the difference between a $200 camera and a $2,000 camera is night and day. But if you take a $2,000 camera and compare it to a $20,000 camera, the differences are very minor and most people might not even be able to tell the difference. So I'm not going to say that a filter like this is a must buy, that you have to go out there and get one. But if you like the effect that it gives and you feel like this would help your photos or videos out, then by all means give them a try. Maybe some of you might be in the area that you can rent one of these filters, but I definitely recommend checking it out if you're interested in what it does. I'm also going to make a video on using this filter during a photo shoot, so if you want to see that, then make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And don't forget to drop any comments or questions that you have down below. Give this video a thumbs up and follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time.